In Moonlight Peaks, you're often left to figure things out all on your own, and while this does lead to a great sense of discovery, it can also cause confusion and potential setbacks. As always, I'm here to help, so you can learn from my biggest mistakes. Hello friends, Sarah Sunstone here, and welcome back to Wish I Knew. In today's episode, I'll be sharing the 10 biggest mistakes I've made so far in Moonlight Peaks, so you can learn from my experience and spare yourself the hassle. Please go ahead and shine the lovely like button if you find these videos helpful, and make sure to subscribe to my channel with your notifications on for more Moonlight Peaks content. Otherwise, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the first mistake I made was processing and selling 2-star produce and other 2-star goods before I knew that one of every single variety is required for the museum's farming room. This includes crops that are grown in the ground, herbs that are grown in the planter boxes, and produce harvested from trees. It also includes mundane and magical produce, which does on occasion involve multiple variants of the same crop, like the angry and happy mandrakes. Plus, there are some additional ingredients that you'll need for 2-star cooked dishes that must be donated to the museum as follows: the googly soup, which requires 1 common mushroom and 1 dried googly garlic; the Bloody Manna Mary, which requires 1 blood tomato, 1 manna essence, and 1 moonshine. For this one, while there's no quality grade for manna essence, to make the 2-star moonshine in your keg, you'll actually need 3 2-star wheat and 1 2-star plop, which is produced by the bumpkins. Next is the farmer's stew, which requires 2 blood tomatoes and 1 eggplant. There's also the manna moon cupcake, which calls for 1 moon fruit, 1 manna essence, and 1 flour, which again will require that 2-star wheat to make with your mill. You'll also need to make a 2-star fishy milkshake with 1 whisper fish, 1 pig oat milk, and 1 googly garlic powder. And finally, 1 2-star bottle of blood grape wine. So you'll need to set aside some extra 2-star grapes for this as well. This should cover all of the additional 2-star items that you should stash away until you've unlocked the museum and the recipes for these cooked dishes. And since your global storage is integrated with the crafters and makers on your plot, I recommend crafting some extra storage bins to keep these items in separately until you're able to donate them, just so you don't accidentally process them beforehand. It can also be somewhat difficult to actually obtain the 2-star quality rating, especially for certain types of produce, so you really want to make sure that you've donated 1 of each before doing anything else with them. And that brings us to the next mistake I made, which is skipping fertilizer when planting crops. Because even when you do fertilize your crops, it's not a guarantee that you'll grow quality crops. It's just a chance. And as we've already covered, you will need lots of 2-star items for the museum, but you'll also profit more off of cooked and processed goods that reach 1 or 2 stars in their quality rating over the base quality that you'll receive without fertilizing. It's also super easy to obtain fertilizer as soon as you have ranch animals, because it will just naturally collect in the barn, reaching a point where you'll likely end up with more than you can even use, depending on the size of your farm and number of ranch animals that you have. While I recommend fertilizing everything you grow when you can to increase your profit, I also suggest using the premium fertilizer specifically when trying to grow 2-star crops within a certain season for the museum. This special fertilizer can be crafted in the refiner just by adding some manna essence to your basic fertilizer. The reason I suggest this is because, in my experience, I would use the premium fertilizer coupled with the firefly pollinators that also help to boost crop quality, and at times I would still have harvests with no 2-star crops in the mix, since again, it's just a chance at harvest. So in short, if you're looking to complete your collections at the museum and make more money, never skip fertilizing your crops. Now, we've already seen multiple instances where you'll need manna essence, leading us to my next huge mistake, which was waiting way too long before I started taking growing magical crops and collecting manna essence seriously. In the beginning, I felt overwhelmed by mana management and spellcasting, so honestly, I avoided it unless it was part of a quest. But I really regretted this later on when I realized how much it could benefit my gameplay, and I would have preferred growing small amounts of magical crops here and there, rather than feeling like I needed to grow so many at once to reach my goals. You need mana essence for premium fertilizer, and premium fodder for your animals. You'll also need it to cook different recipes, some for the museum and others to actually consume for mana replenishment. You'll also be able to make a ton of money off of brewing mana wine in your kegs when you have a surplus. And maybe most importantly, the final set of tool upgrades actually requires 4 bottles of mana per tool. As you can see, you need a ton of mana essence. So get started on growing and collecting magical crops to process into that essence early on. Keep in mind that not all magical crops are created equally, so it's not always worth the effort to water them with magic if you're specifically growing them for mana essence. My favorite one to stockpile is the gobbler, because one single crop will be converted into anywhere from 4 to 6 entire bottles of mana essence with the mana extractor, depending on quality. If the gobblers aren't in season, the happy mandrakes specifically are the next best option. Which brings us to the next big mistake I made, which was honestly failing over and over again at attempting to grow certain magical crops. While some of the crop's requirements are more obvious, like the dricker that needs both regular and magical water, or the gobbler, which actually needs to be fed fish and bugs, there are others that are much more mysterious, and it took me a long time to learn how to grow them properly. So now that I finally figured out what these picky crops require, you can learn from my mistakes. The first is the mandrake, which you'll probably notice is always angry, and that's because they like their personal space. You'll actually need to plant the mandrakes at least 2 tiles apart from each other in order to grow their happy counterpart successfully. Next, we have the wicca, which you might find to always be weeping. While this can be super useful to help water nearby crops, you'll need to plant them next to the hold me close crop to obtain a sweet wicca. I will say that I also got lucky once and got a sweet wicca when using the Mercurio spell, so you could try that too if you're in desperate times like I was. Finally, the one that took me by far the longest to figure out was the muse tree, which just would not seem to grow no matter what I tried. That's because this tree actually requires a gramophone to grow, which can be obtained very rarely at the Howling Hammer. I also noticed that my muse tree would only show progress of growth when I turned the gramophone off and then back on every day. When you do this, you'll see your tree start dancing, swaying back and forth, and progressing through its growth stages over time. The next big mistake I made, which I didn't learn until my 2nd year of gameplay, was that a lot of the bugs and critters you'll need to donate to the museum have very specific spawn conditions. The ones I've discovered so far are as follows. The buzzer seems to only spawn on days where there's lightning and thunder, which makes sense because it has a lightning bolt design on its back. There's also the cyclops that appears in spots where Yabis can pop up when he's not there to set up shop. It also seems that there's a chance to spawn special bugs when harvesting crops, so I always have my eyes peeled in case a new one happens to pop up. I've also found spotted wings that pretty regularly emerge from dig spots, but there are other butterfly-type bugs that seem to only appear when breaking rocks. So far, I've found the fader and the jader, but I'm sure there could be others that I've still yet to discover. And the one category of bugs that actually took me the longest to discover were all the different critters that can appear when clearing weeds. I've come across a ton of different bugs emerging from clearing weeds with my scythe on my farm, in Moonlit Pines, and in Howling Marshes so far. While this isn't a comprehensive list by any means, the takeaway here is to interact with your environment lots when critter catching. Maybe even chop or shake some trees along the way. And if you see a critter spawn from an action, be sure to catch it, because it's likely unique to that specific action. And very shamefully, I also got so busy in my daily routines and quests that at one point I let the fertilizer pile up to 100 in one of my barns. So if you'd like a cheeky little surprise, I suggest trying this out for yourself. Just trust me. Now, the next mistake I made was spending way too much time fishing without the rapid reel potion. I honestly feel like now that I've had a taste of this, I can't go back. I received my first rapid reel potion as a gift, but once you unlock your cauldron and purchase the recipe for the potion at Web of Wonders, you can brew it yourself using 1 angry mandrake, 1 wolfsbane powder, 1 sugar, and 1 whisperfish, which are very common. It's pretty simple, but for me, using this potion is so worth it because upon consumption and while it stays active, fish will bite instantly. So now, whenever I'm wanting to fish, either to complete my museum collections or just to profit, I will empty my pockets, plan my route, and activate the potion first thing in the morning once all my dailies are taken care of on the farm, so I can reel in tons of catches in the most efficient way. The next big mistake I made was neglecting friendships, which led to me missing out on some amazing features and also using up way too many resources for gifting. If I could go back in time, I would give out simple flowers to almost every resident except Noelle, who I would just give basic fish to, until I reached 2 hearts with each of them. This is when you unlock the hugging interaction, so from here, I would just chat with the characters and give them a hug every day to save my resources, gradually increasing friendship for free over time. I would also recommend taking on those job requests because you'll gain friendship boosts from these and usually also earn money or get free items that could be sold if you'd like. Plus, they're often quite fun to complete. I personally got so busy completing quests and managing my farm that I didn't realize my mistake until I found myself missing specific recipes in my cookbook that I ended up being gifted from certain characters once I finally decided to focus on friendship. You'll also end up with lots of amazing rewards from befriending the characters, some that are just nice extra freebies, but others that are kinda game-changing. And I will share these in a separate video in case you want to discover them for yourself, but the point is, definitely don't neglect your friends in Moonlight Peaks and give out lots of hugs. Now, the next big mistake I made was spending way too much time and energy prioritizing Soul Blob collection. Heads up here that I will be discussing the rewards for collecting these spooky critters, so please reference the timestamps if you'd like to avoid this specific spoiler. But to foreshadow a bit, there's a reason I'm sharing this as a mistake. I have to admit, this mechanic got me in the beginning because after collecting my first 10, it actually unlocked the ability to slow down time. This was huge for me because I could play at the steadier pace of 25 minutes per night rather than the default 15. Because this reward was so amazing to me, I was locked in on trying to collect as many soul blobs as possible, sometimes at the expense of other tasks and my stamina. After collecting 50, I was disappointed to find out that the next reward was just to change the time to 10 minutes, but I was determined that completing the entire collection would grant something incredible. I mean, it is 100 soul blobs after all, some of which were very difficult to chase down. Unfortunately, the final reward for collecting all 100 is just 2 additional time settings, 12 minutes and 20 minutes. Now, unless someone out there discovers that 12 minutes is absolutely life-changing instead of 10 or 15, and likewise for the 20-minute feature, I was just so disappointed by this. I was honestly more satisfied by looking at the completed compendium page than I was with the reward itself, which ironically felt like it didn't respect the player's time to actually obtain it. Now, to be clear, I know games are often about the journey, not the destination, but in a game that requires a lot of time and stamina management, plus so many tasks to choose from and balance, I just wouldn't have spent so much of my personal time trying to collect them all for basically no reward. Because to be clear, you'll probably have to spend about 60 to 80 hours in the game, depending on your playstyle, to actually complete this collection. And since we're on the topic of time, let's talk about the vampsters, because I made so many mistakes with this system and lost literally dozens of real-world hours trying to find them all. Now, in one of my previous videos covering some things I wish I knew sooner, which I'll link down in the description, I shared how it took me a while to discover that the vampsters are actually numbered in your compendium, so you can see which areas of the map you should be searching rather than just wandering around aimlessly. But that's just the start of it. I was super motivated in the beginning to collect them all, to the point that I was more than willing to make the long treks around the world, often getting interrupted by cutscenes, which would then send the vampsters running all the way back to their starting point. So another little tip here is to check ahead of time on the map for sparkles before you make those long trips. But honestly, if I could go back, I wouldn't even bother collecting too many vampsters until I unlocked the catacombs, which will allow you underground shortcuts around the map to make this process just a bit more streamlined. If you're curious as to how you'll unlock these passageways, you will need to complete 25% of your museum collections first. But this isn't even the biggest mistake I made when it came to the vampsters, which was the fact that I completely missed that there are festival exclusive vampsters. Yes, you heard me right. So if you miss these in your first year, you'll need to loop all the way around the calendar to year 2 to get them. So to spare you all the hassle, and hopefully so you can collect them in your first year, I'll let you know that I found 1 Vampster at the Lovage Festival in spring, 2 Vampsters at the Evernight Festival in autumn, and 1 Vampster at the Winterwake Festival in the winter. And on the topic of festivals, the final big mistake I made actually took place at the Evernight Festival, and it was actually not just 1 mistake, but 2. At the Evernight Festival, there's a festival-exclusive currency that you'll need if you'd like to purchase any of the goodies from the Evernight shop. Now, the festival runs over the course of 3 nights, and I spent all of my time trying to earn this currency by playing all the games, which awarded me very few coins, losing the showcase, which meant I got 0, and then trick-or-treating for a hope and a dream. I did earn enough to pick up a few recipes and a decoration or 2, but by the 3rd day I had mostly given up and I headed off to the mines. Now, luckily, this led to my discovery that during the festival, you can actually unearth Evernight coins from the sparkly dig spots around the world. And usually, I'm all about the dig spots, but I had spent so much time trying to earn coins at the festival, I didn't realize that I could have been digging up piles of them around town during this event. So please learn from my mistake, start on the first day of the festival, get all the dig spots, get all the coins. And speaking of coins, oh my gosh, do not gift out the blue wrapped candies to the residents, especially not on your first year. You'll get these candies from the trick-or-treat baskets around town as a random drop, alongside other treats and goodies. And you can collect from every single basket every single day of the festival. Now, I was so deeply in the spirit of the season that I thought, oh, I bet the locals would love these candies. Let me just give them out as little treats. Now, I don't even remember if any of the characters liked or loved them, but I certainly remember going to sell the last one I had left over at the end of the event and discovering they were worth 1,100 coins each. This would have been an amazing way to make such easy money in your first autumn, so do not gift or eat those blue wrapped candies. Please save them and sell them. So there you have it, friends. Those were the biggest mistakes I've made so far playing Moonlight Peaks. And although there's really no right or wrong way to play the game, and part of the beauty of gameplay is making new discoveries, I do really hope this will help to improve your experience with the game. Let me know down in the comments if you've also made any of these mistakes yourself, or what you're now gonna do differently after watching this video. Anything and everything, you know I always love hearing from you. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. And until next time, take care.